to yet another episode of Rendezvous with Ansar Saqib on CxO Global TV. CxO Global Forum is a knowledge-sharing platform for all C-levels across Pakistan and the globe. We take massive pride in contributing to the knowledge economy. And each time we have some domain experts with us. We've got thought leaders. These are people who are the movers and shakers of the corporate industry, and those that have had an impact on the sustainable economy, who are going to be the architects of the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we are doing a very, very special episode with a very special guest, Mr. Todd Shea. He is the founder of CDRS, which is a humanitarian organization that was established in 2005, and he has come and become a part of Pakistan. He's got a wonderful, wonderful journey. He's one of those people that have been contributing towards the betterment of Pakistan, towards the people. So, in terms of when you talk about sustainability, then Todd Shea is one of those people that have not only been doing disaster and response to disasters, but also has been doing a lot of field work in community building. So we know that as C-levels and the corporate industry, there have been a lot of collaborations. He has a lot of expertise in terms of social entrepreneurship and community building, engagement. And there's a lot more that's inspiring about his journey. And he has a lot of knowledge to share. So let's listen to Todd, and let's see how he contributes to the knowledge economy. Todd, thank you so much for joining us today.
Anza, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a big honor for me. Thank you so much.
Okay, lovely. So Todd, you're literally a household name, at least in Islamabad and the northern areas of Pakistan. I know a lot of people that appreciate the commendable work that you've been doing. Your LinkedIn profile also speaks volumes. But what I'm interested in knowing is, where did your journey begin? Where did you go to school? Where did you grow up? What experiences and what in events contributed to leading you to your journey of where you are at right now?
Well, I was born in 1966 in Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
so I grew up in, yeah, it's a pretty area. I grew up in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. My mother was a receptionist for a company that made lighting fixtures and electronic components. My father worked for the government, and I just had a normal upbringing as a kid in America. But my mother passed away, unfortunately, when I was 12 years old, and I wasn't close with my father. So I came from a middle-class family, but when my mother passed away in 1978, when I was 12 years old, it really threw me and my whole life into a tailspin. And for the next many years, because I wasn't close with my father at all, so for the next 4 or 5 years, I was unfortunately had gotten into drugs, had become addicted to heavy drugs like cocaine, and was really heading towards disaster. But my mother had bought me a guitar about a month before she died. Before Christmas, she had bought me a guitar, and even though she had died, I got that guitar on Christmas morning. So I think the music and the guitar was a way to stay close to her, and it eventually, even though I still got into trouble with drugs and things, eventually music and that guitar is what saved me. And I started doing that professionally, playing music in bands and getting more and more popular until I finally had a record deal for myself and playing music all over the country in America. And that was what I thought my calling was. But, my mother, when I was very young, she was one day driving down the road. We were going somewhere, and on the highway, you see the taillights and the headlights of all the cars. And she said, Todd, there's a lot of, you see all these cars and all the lights, but inside each car is a family, is people that have their ups and downs, their triumphs and tragedies. And, we should care about people all over the world, whether they're our next door neighbor or whether they're on the other side of the planet. And she just had that philosophical, kind of inspiration to say that to me. And she was always the person who would give her last dime to somebody if she thought they needed it more. So she instilled those in me. So even though I lost her at an early age, that was always in me. So even though I started getting famous in music and playing all over the country, I always tried to do things with my music to help others. And then I finally had a record deal. I had Sid Bernstein, who brought the Beatles and Rolling Stones to America, had signed me, had a big concert scheduled at CBGB's nightclub in Manhattan, New York. And that schedule was for September 12th, 2001. Unfortunately for my music career, September 11th, 2001 happened. And I was in my hotel ready to go rehearse for the show that was going to be the next day. On the morning of September 11th, I saw the towers on fire outside of my hotel room. And I put my guitar down and I went down and worked at the Twin Towers for a week, doing logistics, helping put supplies together for the rescuers. And it was at ground zero that my life changed and my direction changed, which eventually led me to Pakistan and other countries where I've done development and relief work, disaster relief work. I learned down at ground zero something about myself. I guess because my life's been a disaster, I was good at responding to disasters in this terrible environment. I was able to get people who are trained to go into burning and collapsed buildings, doctors, and even the rescue dogs and things. I was able to help them by giving them the things that they needed, their food and water, their supplies, their blankets, their medicines, their equipment, their transportation, their communications, all of those things I was able to take care of in this very chaotic environment. And then, of course, after a few days, they didn't need me anymore because larger efforts took shape. But I learned that in a disaster zone, somebody doing what I did, which was kind of a lone wolf out there doing helping with logistics.
Right.
So yeah, I learned how to do this.
Sorry to cut you off there, Todd, but before you go on, I would also like to ask you that with a lot of the younger people that are watching, right, and oftentimes back when we used to do community service in school, you often feel like, and especially fine, a one-off event is all right, but especially in terms of disaster, we're just, whether you're living in the US or you're living in Pakistan, I've lived in both places, and we just have this preconceived notion that the response to disaster is the responsibility of the authorities or the UN missions or the NGOs or whatever. How is it that you realize that as a lone wolf you could make a difference, and especially
Well,
in your response?
what I found out at ground zero, just by accident, just by chance, when I went down there to see if my van, which I took all my guitars and amplifiers out, and so I had the van and I thought it could be helpful. Sure enough, they needed it. And what I learned is that an individual person that wants to do something, regardless of the government or regardless of larger efforts and people whose responsibility it is, when it's a disaster situation, sometimes those larger efforts haven't had a time to take shape and be organized and start helping people immediately. It takes time. So even the larger the effort and the bigger the disaster and more sudden the disaster, they need people who are experienced in logistics. And somehow, because of my music career and everything I did in music, I was able to kind of translate that logistics experience in the music business and all the things you have to do to run a band and all those things, record and write and play in front of the audience and deal with managers and radio stations and club owners and fans. All those things kind of in some way prepared me so that when I went down at ground zero, I realized that I was naturally, I just had this ability to be able to get things and take care of the logistical needs that people had. And then after the few days that I was at ground zero, when I wasn't needed anymore after a week, and I went back because I was just in the way at that point. But in the early days, the first 3 or 4 days, what I did was critical. And it helped a lot of people that needed things right away while the larger efforts were still taking time to develop. So it taught me a lot and I learned a lot there. And the other thing that happened to me is after I left ground zero in New York, the pursuit of fame and fortune and money and adulation in the music business and the ego stuff, that all evaporated with the Twin Towers. I no longer felt that pull to be famous and rich and have 1 million fans come to see my concerts. Somehow at ground zero, it kind of was like a epiphany, an experience that said to me, you know, what I really want to do is help other people. What I really want to do is use this newfound experience and expertise that I have to help in other places where these things are happening. And so my desire to take that further was something that totally overshadowed any feeling to continue with my music in a commercial sense. Although I've continued playing music to help raise funds for my charity, to learn culture of Pakistan and other nations, and to have fun with musicians and these type of things, and enjoy with my family. But I've left music in terms of the commercial aspect and the music business of it. I've kind of left that behind, and I'm very satisfied with my life as it is. I wish there hadn't been so many disasters to respond to, but the fact is that, and I don't like being at disasters because you see a lot of death and destruction and hopelessness, but I'm able to give people hope. I'm able to do something for people that helps them have hope and brings a smile to their face and gives them something to continue surviving and helps the responders so that they can better do their job. So to me, it's a very purpose-driven life, and it's a way to live that I think is, I wouldn't want to live any other way at this point.
That's brilliant, and what an inspiring journey, Todd. We're so grateful to you for all your contributions to humanity. But coming back to your personal journey, from what I can make of the conversation, one of the turning points was, you know, for globally as well, a big catastrophe was the Twin Towers. And I remember I was in middle school and I just felt like overnight, I felt like the world around me had changed. Similar thing happened when the earthquake came in 2005 in Pakistan. And then shortly after that, I mean, I haven't felt that magnitude of disaster up until, or that feeling of impending doom up until last year with the pandemic. So what I would like to know is what kind of work have you been involved in? And would you consider this a disaster as well, post-pandemic? Because I know a lot of people have lost their livelihoods as well.
This is a tremendous disaster, and not only for one particular area, but for the whole world. You know, millions of people have been hurt or killed by this virus, and billions of people's lives have been upended economically. Their jobs, their livelihoods
Absolutely.
have been affected. So yes, it's been a truly global disaster, and it's something that is, you know, every disaster is very different. It has its different characteristics, whether it's an earthquake or a tsunami or a flood or a heat emergency or a conflict zone. But this is the first disaster where it's truly affected so many people globally, at least in my lifetime that I know of.
Right, absolutely. And Todd, what would be interesting to discuss at this point in time would be that earlier, I'm sure, because I know that you had very successful partnerships with some people from the corporate sector, and companies have been very supportive to the cause. But we know that in the past year, a lot of businesses suffered heavy losses as well. Has their contribution been affected, or have they been a little more reluctant upon sharing more, or in terms of the donations, in terms of the collection of funds?
But what I found is that there are some businesses and some people who have thrived and done very well economically during this time. So some of them who I know have been very helpful to support our work and fund it. For instance, the Pakistani American physician community, APNA,
Yeah.
they are heroes, like
Wow.
absolutely first class people that have not only have they donated to CDRS and others to help feed people, to help them in this time of crisis, but they've been on the front lines, risking their lives with this virus to treat people, to work in hospitals. And it's quite inspiring and magnificent. I've always been inspired by doctors that I've worked with in the field, but they've really outdone themselves. And the Pakistani American community has continued to support us. We haven't been able to do a live fundraiser event where I've visited and done an event or a show for fundraising for CDRS for a year and a month now, for 13 months. since we've been
And that
but
was my
online
follow-up question. Sorry, that was going to be my
yeah,
follow-up question, Todd, because things have changed, right?
gotcha.
So
So
you can no longer
online,
do your
we've done fundraising online, and a lot of our regular donors. What's that?
I said, yeah, that was my follow-up question to you, Todd, because the world around us has changed. You can't do conventional fundraisers, and you can't have your events. So how does the fundraising happen then?
So we do a lot of online fundraising, and of course, I've called on the phone to all of our donors and supporters, and we've had within Pakistan here. We've had Mari Petroleum. We're doing a huge project with them. We're feeding 600 people a day with a food truck in the Islamabad Pindi area. Mari Petroleum and APNA and UK Medical Aid to Pakistan and Islamic Medical Association of North America and many individual donors who've supported us over the years, who are thankfully they do well, and they have resources, and they've continued. I think that many people have been economically affected, and they're not able to donate like they did before. But there are people who, despite the challenges and the economic situation, they've done pretty well for themselves, and they have stepped up and really, really supported with their generosity and their love, and opening up their wallets to good causes. So I think that's kept us going in this world. Those good people out there.
Yeah, what a beautiful thought indeed. Todd, so it's something that I had been thinking for some time now. So when we hear the name Comprehensive Disaster Response Services, how was the name conceived? What was the thought behind it? Who came up with it? CDRS.
Well, I came to Pakistan. I had just come to the tsunami in Sri Lanka in 2005, earlier in 2005. Then I was at Hurricane Katrina in the summer and fall of 2005. And the day that I got back from Hurricane Katrina, when I was finished with that mission, I came in to see my son. I turned on the television. Earthquake in Pakistan is all over the media. I hadn't been in the door for 5 minutes from one disaster, and I saw another one. And I immediately decided to go to Pakistan. Even though I'd never been to Pakistan, I didn't know anything about Pakistan, and I didn't know who I was going with or how I would get there. But I looked at my son. I said, I'm going to Pakistan. He was 16 at the time. Now he works with me. He's 30 years old. But I got on the computer and I got the number off of Google for the Pakistan embassy. And I called the Pakistan embassy and I told them about my experience and the other disasters and how I'd just been to several disasters recently and just came back from Hurricane Katrina. So they gave me the number of some of the Pakistani American doctors who they said were going. So I told them about my experience when I talked to those doctors, and they asked me to join. So I joined, and I came with them, and I was just going to stay for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, they said, more doctors are coming, please stay. So I stayed longer, fell in love with the children of Pakistan, the people of Pakistan, found it to be a Zabardast and Khubsurat Behreen nation, and Mazadar Khana, beautiful mountains. And I was asked by people in the villages, people in the army to stay, and they helped me register an organization. So I had to name it something. At the time, because we were doing so much disaster work, it seemed Comprehensive Disaster Response Services was a good way to start, because we were doing logistics work. So in the last 15 years, we've done a lot of disaster logistics, both short-term emergency and long-term rehabilitation for many years in places like Azad Kashmir and Swat and Sindh, in the floods, the earthquakes and things. But we've also gone beyond comprehensive disaster relief. We've actually grown beyond our name, because now we're doing development work. We have over 400 water projects in the country, from reverse osmosis water filtration units right on down to hand pumps and solar systems. We have a House of Blessings for widows and orphans. We have a couple clinics, one in Swat, one in Karia, for child health and mother-child health. We have a youth community service project with chapters all over the country. And we have Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, Chitral, Faisalabad, Sheikhupura, and Charsada and Peshawar. We have animal welfare efforts where we help support animal rescuers and animal activists with doing all the things that are needed to take care of especially kutas and billies, because a lot of people don't realize it in Pakistan and other parts of the world, that if we don't take care of our domesticated animals, then they will multiply in population, and then they will upset the entire health of the ecosystem. So the water will be affected, the children will be affected, there'll be dog cases of bites and rabies, and there will be nuisance in the communities, and that's our fault. As a society, we have to manage that, like, say, Turkey has done. Turkey has done a magnificent job because they do trap, neuter, vaccinate, release, so they keep the population down so it doesn't get out of control. And then those cats, those kutas and billies that survive, they are not too many, but they are enough, because if you don't have kutas and billies, then the rats and mice population will come up, and they'll spread all kinds of disease, and they will overrun the cities. So we need some stray cats and dogs, but we're working with animal welfare and rescuers so that we can try to work on keeping the population down in a humane way that's good for the community and is a humane way. So Allah will bless our efforts to not be cruel. If we're cruel to the animals that are domesticated animals, then definitely Allah is going to punish us all as a society, and we'll suffer, all of us, for it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's so beautiful. But yeah, when you talk about comprehensive disaster relief services and everything, you have literally covered the whole ecosystem. From disaster relief to schools and welfare and health and sanitation, even animal rights. But when you talk about, and it's interesting because I'd like to know a little more about, the fact that when you talk about logistics and solutions for when there is a disaster-stricken area, for the knowledge of our audience that are watching, what exactly does that entail? Because as I understand, it's the army and other peacekeeping missions and everything that are actually providing ration and so on and so forth. So what exactly does the comprehensive disaster element entail?
Well, in a nutshell, we manage logistics for delivering food, water, clothing, medicines in times of disaster, in disaster zones. Plus, we manage the logistics for expertise, like doctors or any kind of expertise that would come in to work in a disaster zone, who are very badly needed. But if they, just like at ground zero, if they have to manage all their own things, their transportation, their security, their communications, their supplies, their tents and blankets, their food, if they have to do that themselves, they don't have time to do what they're trained to do. So they must have the support of people like us. So going forward over the last many years, there's a reason why we do many things well. If Pakistan only needed only needed education, then we would just do education. But Pakistan needs many things. And because we come from a disaster logistics background, we're able to do logistics. If you can manage logistics in a disaster zone, then logistics non-disaster in development work is very easy. So my team and I are trained in multi-sectoral, multitasking disaster logistics, and we can respond to any kind of disaster. We can work with any kind of expertise in the field of education, healthcare, agriculture, animal welfare, you name it. We can do that kind of work because we are good at logistics, and we are trained in logistics when it's a disaster situation. So now we're able to do that and apply that in times where it's normal. In disasters, you need everything. You need all at the same time. Everybody is crying for food and medicine and support, and you have to respond to that. So non-disaster time, it's much easier to respond to those things for us, for people like us that have the experience. So while some organizations may be good at just doing one thing and focusing on one thing, that's good for them. But for us, we have the ability to work in many sectors because of our disaster logistics background.
Absolutely, and it the only analogy that I can think of is when you go inside the emergency room, or when you're walking inside a hospital with a bad wound, and there are these trauma doctors that are there. So they're on the field, they're trained to just take on anything and everything. More.
This is a very, very good analogy.
Yeah. So more power to you, Todd. But when we talk about a lot of the areas that you identified. What do you think are the three main areas, or the most where we need to put in all our efforts, at least in Pakistan? So which three areas can you identify for us that you need the most support in?
Well, I think that everybody talks about the education of the children. There's a lot of children not going to school. There's street children. Even many, many millions of children that go to government schools are not getting a proper education. They're mostly taught memorization. They're not taught analytical skills, to question things, to ask why, to learn how things are and what things are, how they work. Enough, that's sorely needed. So we all know that education is needed more in Pakistan, especially the audience here of CEOs. I could learn a lot from them. My organization can learn a lot from them. We hope that they'll work with us, and we can learn what they have to offer, because they have, and C-level folks here in Pakistan. They are very important to the society, for the society and the younger people to learn from them. Like my
They are
friend Salim
important
Gori.
stakeholders, right? They
Yeah,
are
exactly,
important
like
stakeholders.
Salim Gori from
Network. Yeah.
NetSol.
Network. Yeah.
So he gives a lot of his time to younger people, and showing how he's been successful and what he does. And so these kinds of things are very, very important. But I would say that beyond the education, we really need to worry about a couple things, which is the water situation and the environment. We have to stop dumping chemicals. The government has to get tough on industries that dump chemicals into the water, because we have very little water as it is compared to the need, and we can't waste that water, and we can't taint that water and contaminate it with industrial contaminants and these type of things that will hurt people and cause people to health and to die of diseases, and the elderly and the young. So we have to manage the whole environment, not just the water, but the kutas and billies and the overpopulation of domestic animals, and the water situation, and leaving trash out on the road, and not properly cleaning. They say Islam, most of Islam is cleanliness, but unfortunately I see in the society we're cleaning up our houses and our private areas, but we're not worried about the whole society. So cleanliness also extends not only beyond our walls of our house, but also out into the society. So we should be teaching children not to litter, and not to dump things, and not to and to care about the environment. So this is another thing. Another thing I think is really important is Pakistan's population is going up into 240 million, and and as the water and the resources either get less or stay the same, and in the case of water, less because of climate change, but then the population keeps growing. So the population of the country is like a population bomb. So the people of the country and the society has to all change their thinking, that there was a time where having 7, 8, 9, 10 kids was great and was needed for this country. But now we're in a new situation, and we have to realize that we want to keep the population strong, but we don't want the population to be so much that the few resources that are there are now too much in short supply. So we have to have some of our best thinkers, our CEOs, our government people. They have to come together with recommendations and solutions for the population. I'm not saying to do anything draconian or anything wrong, but we do have to at least look at the problem from experts like philanthropists, from our CEOs, from the smartest people, and we have to come up with some solutions and ways to approach the education of society and the public health awareness, so they understand the economic and the problems in society that are caused if the population gets too big in a situation where resources are limited.
Absolutely. And Todd, you very rightly pointed out that this is one of the aims that we have at CxO Global Forum, to put all the thought leaders together and the regulators and really help with policy making, because everybody had been working in silos, and they're not really united on one platform, because maybe we don't have that sense of realization that maybe
Let me tell you something. Pakistanis, and I can tell you this from being in disaster zones all over the world, Haiti, Japan, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, America, Pakistan, Bangladesh, several disaster zones, and travel around the world. Pakistanis are absolutely brilliant people. They have a brilliance. They have a natural brilliance. I've seen people who are basically uneducated who can fix an engine with duct tape. I don't know how they do it. I couldn't do it.
They have their own
So
hacks, and it's called
there
Jugaad in
is
the local language.
incredible talent and incredible brilliance in Pakistan. What all Pakistan lacks is teamwork and trust in each other. If we can develop teamwork with each other as a society, because a lot of our CEOs and our companies, they build great teams and they have great teamwork internally. They develop that. But unfortunately, in a lot of our universities and in society, we're not practicing teamwork. We're not understanding teamwork and team building as much as it should be. It should be something that's taught to small children. It should be something that the society starts taking seriously, because without teamwork, you can have a room full of 10 people who are all brilliant. But if they don't work together as a team, then you can have 10 uneducated together who work as a team who will win that contest.
Absolutely. And Todd, I always use team, the word team as an acronym. Put together, everybody achieves more. So together, everyone achieves more. So that's the point of a team. But here's something else that's some food for thought. And I've often noticed, because I interact with a lot of these C-level execs on a daily basis, oftentimes, and I mean this worldwide, whether you're talking about the MNCs or the FMCGs or other big corporations, sometimes we don't see a lot of importance being given to CSR, their corporate social responsibility. So can you please elaborate a little on the importance of CSR, and why is it important in creating that future that everybody wants to see?
Well, when I talk to a lot of people in corporates about CSR, the conversations revolve many times around, okay, let's do something in an area where we do business. Let's do something in that geographical area. Let's do this kind of project that maybe relates to some of the work that we do. And that's all very good. But I would encourage more CSR to be about the bigger picture, doing things that are good for the country, maybe not even necessarily good for something that's good for myself, but something that's good for my country is going to be good for my family, my friends, my people, my community. So CSR should embody that, and that should always be the first thing, because I think that if you are a company that has a very strong CSR component that works for communities, regardless of the personal benefit that you may get, then you will be blessed by Allah more, and then you will be personally benefited. So it should be about the bigger picture, because if you look at the bigger picture and you do things in that way, then definitely Allah is going to bless your company, is going to bless you with more success, going to bless you with more opportunities. And so sometimes we as human beings, not just Pakistan, I see it in America too. In fact, America is really having some reckoning right now, and the hypocrisy has been exposed, and the mask has been ripped off. And there are many corporations in America who are very much misusing and exploiting the poor, not only in their country, but in other countries around the world. And it should stop. It's wrong. If we do things for the wrong reasons, for simple greed, then it will come back to haunt us, and it will backfire eventually. It may help us for a little while. It may benefit us for some time. We'll be king of the hill for a while, but we'll get knocked off. We will definitely be, it won't last. So if we want success to last, if we want to be blessed so that we have, can continue to be able to do great things, then whether it's CSR or whether it's an individual human being, we have to realize that there is a purpose bigger than the self, bigger than our own thing. And if we tend to that, yes, we take care of ourselves and our families, but if we also tend to the needs of our community, our nation, and to all humanity, then we will be in a good shape. Right now, we're going through this this terrible lockdown around the world in the last year of COVID-19. My personal opinion is that we did it as a world, as a human race, we didn't look at the big picture. We let things like Kashmir and Palestine get locked down and have people mistreated there. We didn't do enough about it. We let things go. Because it's good for business for America to do business in India, so they stay quiet about Kashmir. It's good to do business with Israel. They stay quiet about Palestine. But look at where it's got us. Allah said I can lock down all of you now. You want to lock down Kashmir? You don't care. You want to lock down Palestine? You don't care. So I can lock all of you down. I can lock down the whole world. So this is the fruits of not taking care of injustice anywhere. God will show us who the ultimate judge of humanity is. And right now we're going through this hell because maybe many of us individually are innocent, but as a collective world, we are not taking care of each other. And we're not taking care of each other, then we can either all live together or we can all die together.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be one. It's going to be temporary. Maybe right now, some of the people in the world are doing very well and succeeding and making a lot of money, but half of the population of the earth lives on less than $2 a day, and most of them suffer in poverty and war, and they're exploited and they're stolen from by the powers that be around the world, by the banks and the people that sell weapons and war in order to make money. And these kinds of things might profit them in the short term, but it's going to destroy the world in the long term, and then we'll all be suffering.
Absolutely, Todd, and you've really, this is a very, very impactful discussion, because at the end of the day, I mean, I've seen this firsthand as well. Oftentimes when I was walking down Times Square, I'd see war veterans, like with their Medal of Honors and everything, and they were homeless. So,
they haven't taken care of the veterans in America at all. 22 die every day from suicide. The medical problems and issues they have to wait for months. Those are the people that get hurt by the war. The top people make money off of it. It's disgraceful. It's disgusting. But it's the road that we're going down, and it's a road that leads to nowhere. So I hope that humanity would wake up from this and get on another path. Otherwise, we're heading towards a path of destruction.
Absolutely, Todd. But, talking about the corporate social responsibility and what the onus is in terms of the corporate sector, I think it's also, significant to bring to notice the fact that some corporations have been doing some good work. We know you quoted a beautiful example of Murray Petroleum, and I've seen the food truck and the kind of work that you guys have been doing.
They're first class organization.
Absolutely. But what we also, oftentimes see is that with the small or medium enterprises, or with, small businesses, startups in particular, they feel like they can get away with it because they just keep saying that, look, we don't have a CSR department. We don't have enough funds to contribute to, the social causes and so on and so forth. So what would your message be to such people?
Well,
because they feel like their contribution isn't big enough.
This is my philosophy. I've taught it to my son. I think it's probably the most important lesson that I gave him. And it's probably the most important lesson that I give young people in our very Junooni Pakistani university students who have chapters around the country. They do great work. Perhaps the most important lesson I have taught them is don't just go out and do something good for the community. Create 1,000 more like you, that they will also go out in the community. If you can go out and talk to children and be an example to them and teach them how to be like you and do what you're doing, that's really going to make the change, because one person can only do so much. Todd Shea can only do so much. But if I inspire 1,000 others to do equally what I'm doing, then you start making a real difference. So the lesson that I've given my son and to young people and to anybody that would listen is that it's not just what you do or don't do that contributes to the sum total of humanity and the good of humanity. It's also what you don't do that you could have done. It's not just what you do for the positive or for the negative. It's what you don't do that you could have done. Because if you didn't do it, but you could have done it, then that's also a negative on humanity. And if 100 million, if 1 billion people all don't do what they could do, then tell me that that's not a huge difference for what humanity would achieve.
Yeah, that's definitely a shift in perspective. But here's the thing, speaking about startups in particular, we see that all over the world, there's a lot of, the startup culture, there's a lot of buzz around it. And a lot of people are only focusing on tech-based startups, right? So creating the new Uber app or maybe Food Panda or, stuff like that. But I mean, I feel like there's a lot that can be done in terms of social entrepreneurship. And do you think we're doing enough to groom our youth about going towards social entrepreneurship? And what can be the scope or the potential for something like that?
Well, no, the short answer is no, we're not doing enough, because a lot of the kids that I mentioned that are very genuine and they volunteer with me, or some of them I've even given a job. But unfortunately, in the society, and sometimes even their parents say, why are you doing this social work? There's no money in it. You should go for something that has a lot of money. Well, hey, going for money is fine. And some people that go for money, they're very generous and they share their wealth, and that's good. But I think that some importance needs to be, and respect needs to be replaced by, placed on people that do social work and do social entrepreneurship. It's extremely important for the society. It helps build people up. It helps empower people. And we have to focus, at least some of our youth should be encouraged to go in that direction and given opportunities in that direction, because it does make such a difference if they're supported rather than if they're not supported. It makes a difference in their lives, and it makes a difference in the lives of people who need help. And Pakistan does have a lot of people who really do need help. So social entrepreneurship must be respected. It must be fostered, and it must be nurtured, and it must be given time and effort and energy by the leaders and by the government, much more than it does. We should be respecting people, not just for we don't respect the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, because of how much money he made or how much money he had. We had respect for what he did as a human being, how he treated others, how he was as a person, his insaniyat, and his humanity and his compassion and his wisdom. And those kinds of things are worth more than all the gold in the world. So yes, gold has its place, but it shouldn't be the only thing that we think about or talk about, because look at where that kind of thinking has gotten the world. Psychopaths who run the world, who only care about making money off of charging interest and selling bombs and bullets. Look at where it's got all of us, except for the very few who look at the rest of humanity like we're a bunch of cockroaches, and the rest of us all have to suffer. Whatever country we're in, we suffer. So we have to get away from that bottom line thinking of only money, money, money all the time. There is a lot of value in social work and social entrepreneurship. And guess what? If there's a solar flare large enough by our sun, and it's at the right time and at the right strength, it'll knock out all the electronics in the world. And it could happen. It's happened before in the history of the world. Some disaster from interstellar space, like a supernova blowing up or something close enough. And then all of the electronic components, the internet, any kind of electronics, any kind of electricity, any kind of light, all of a sudden that's going to be gone. We'll be back in the Stone Age. And when we're back in the Stone Age, then we'll realize the value of social entrepreneurship.
Right, absolutely. And you've really hit the nail on the coffin on that one, Todd. But, I would also encourage people like you with the platform of CxO to really, because we don't have any formal training schools or systems that train people to become better social entrepreneurs. And maybe, this could be one of the things that you do contribute to in terms of those who want to enter or create that startup. However, Todd, just a little bit about your personal experience, because I know you've gone through the whole process of registering your NGO and working with all these different organizations and processes and regulators and everything. How has the Pakistan experience been so far?
Pakistan is very tough in the regulatory sense, especially a few years back with the National Action Plan, Chaudhry Nisar. It was very tough on NGOs because there was NGOs that were doing wrong, misspending money, maybe doing some anti-state activities. these kinds of things were happening, the NGO sector wasn't looked after. So I'm really thankful to the government of Pakistan since that time, and also in this government, they've been much tougher. They have put a lot of regulations in. For instance, we've also been put through that process of having to show our work, prove our work, and we
absolute
recently
transparency, right? Absolute.
Yes, and last year we got a very high score from Pakistan Center for Philanthropy, which you cannot, without that certification, you can't get FBR tax exemption. So we're very proud of the fact that we have been able to. There's these tough government regulations that have been put in place for NGOs and the protocols and procedures. We have been able to come out on top and show ourselves to be a very valuable organization that's trustable, that has our tax returns and our documentation and everything that's needed, our projects and our reports, so that we are able to show and prove that through our certification that we're an organization that's valuable, it's doing good work, and that's it's a process that some NGOs didn't make it through and have been shut down. So we're very happy and very proud of the fact that we're standing and we continued working and never got shut down, and now we have the credentials. So I'm very happy that the Pakistan government has been so tough on the NGOs, and it's a good thing to be held to these high standards, and we'll inshallah keep on going with it. Hello, are you there? I think we lost our host. Anza, are you there? I hope you're coming back. So if everybody's still out there listening to this, I really appreciate Anza and CxO Forum and Kamal and all of his associates for doing such a great job. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry. Like I said,
we lost your connection for a minute.
That's all right, but I'm sure you kept the audience engaged.
I tried my best.
Lovely. Todd, so just the fact that you've had a great experience in Pakistan, you know, it's beautiful to see how just that element of empathy can make such a big difference in the lives of so many people. And I find that it's highly inspirational, the kind of work that you've been doing. I also saw a medal. I believe you've been decorated by the ex-Prime Minister, was it? I believe you have a medal from Pakistan, right?
Yes. Former President Musharraf and former Prime Minister Shaukat Aziz presented me with the Tamga Isar Medal not long after the earthquake, which was basically, that medal was recommended by the Army, like Lieutenant General Farooq Ahmed Khan and General Nadeem, wonderful gentlemen, Brigadier Shahryar Khan and Brigadier Amjad Shabir. These guys were the ones that recommended me for that medal. So I did get that medal. And it represents my whole team, a great bunch of young people that have worked with me and still work with me to this day. So it's nice to be recognized. But, you know, to be honest with you, it's the smiles of children. It's the hope that we give mothers. It's the support that we give families so that they can survive and thrive and eat and live and have hope for a better tomorrow. That's the real reward that we get. And that's what puts a smile on my face and keeps me going. I'm very selfish in this work. It makes me happy. It makes me feel good. And I just hope to keep doing it, more of it until my time on Earth is finished.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, Todd, we've gone overboard on the time that was allotted to us, but the conversation was so interesting. It was so enlightening, and I believe that you should keep contributing to this knowledge economy and sharing your experiences. Upon an end note, what would be your message for all the C-level execs that are watching? Something short and sweet. And then
my message is, my message is, no problem. My message is to them would be, my team and I would love to learn from all of you or any of you. We'd love to be working together on some of your CSR projects. We'd love to engage with you and see how we can work together. And I think that along with my team and I and the kids that we work with in our youth program, which has 30 chapters all over the country, we could learn a tremendous amount from you, the CEOs and C-level people from Pakistan. Pakistan's a great nation, a brilliant nation, and I think it's got a brilliant future. I see these young people and their brilliance and their hope for the country. So if we can instill in them some wonderful ideas about humanity and about taking care of each other, then I think that there's not a single problem that Pakistan has that cannot be sorted out.
Absolutely, those are pragmatic and positive words indeed, and can't help but say that you are an optimist to the very core. Thank you, Todd, for all your time and your efforts. And once again, I can't give you a thamgai, Isar, but all I can say is that we owe you a big thank you for all that you've done for Pakistan and the world.
Well, I owe Pakistan a big thank you for all it's done for me as well. And I appreciate your love and support. It's actually better than getting a medal.
Lovely. Thank you so much for your time, Todd. We look forward to seeing you for some of the other events that we've planned. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to learn more about what Todd has been doing or what CDRS does, we're going to share some links in the comments, and maybe you can, look him up on LinkedIn as well. He's available. If you want to learn more about the forum and what we do, it's www.cxoforum.global. Thank you so much for watching, and we appreciate all your feedback and your comments. We look forward to seeing you. See you next time with yet another interesting guest. Then here's us signing off. Bye, Todd.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Anza. Take care.
You too. Bye.